Fiddlesticks, I'm doing it again, aren't I? Might want to upload more often than every half a year if I want this YouTube thing to go anywhere. With that in mind, let's talk about yet another RPG! I'm starting to have second thoughts about saying platformers are my favorite gaming genre. That's been true for a lot of my life, but now it seems that RPGs are all I talk about. And even when a platformer did get the spotlight, I wouldn't stop comparing it to that RPG I really like. And now that RPGs and Mario games have entered the conversation, let's talk about Camelot Software Planning. These days, they're mostly known for making Mario sports games, but back in the early to mid-90s, they made quite a number of RPGs with varying degrees of success. But it wasn't until 2001 that they made the RPG they're known for now, that being Golden Sun, a franchise that, in its heyday, was acclaimed for providing some of the best role-playing entertainment available on handhelds, but these days is mostly only talked about by its small circle of passionate fans reminiscing on the glories of days gone by, and lamenting the state of neglect that these games have fallen into. And I agree, Golden Sun is a gem deserving of better treatment, and thus it falls to me to expound the merits of these oft-forgotten masterpieces to all 10 of the people who watch my stuff. While I didn't get into this series nearly as early as many others, my first encounter with it was long enough ago for me to feel nostalgic. However, my first Golden Sun game was actually the second one, and we'll get more into that later. For now, let's talk about the original, a game that I didn't get my hands on until it came out on the Wii U Virtual Console, because Nintendo in all its wisdom decided to put the Game Boy Advance library on a home console and not the portable one. The GBA can't come to Nintendo Switch Online soon enough. Golden Sun takes place in Weyard, a medieval magical fantasy land designed by flat earthers. Eons ago, the land was filled with the powers of alchemy, which in Golden Sun has nothing to do with turning lead into gold or making magic potions, but is instead raw mystical power that can do pretty much anything but largely takes the form of the classical elements. But since Golden Sun loves making its own terminology, magic is called Synergy now, and its elemental mages are called Adepts. Or more specifically, Mercury Adepts, Venus Adepts, Mars Adepts, and Jupiter Adepts. Thank you for coming to my lecture, there will be a test later. At any rate, the true powers of alchemy were sealed away due to a destructive war between adepts, and are now unknown and unused to all except a select few. And thus was peace achieved for all time. Nah, I'm kidding. Villains try to reawaken alchemy literally seconds into the game's opening. One night in Vale, a remote village that safeguards the secrets of alchemy, a duo of mystery villains makes an unsuccessful attempt at stealing the keys to reviving alchemy, upsetting the balance of nature and sending Vale into chaos. Fast forward 3 years, and another heist is performed, this time successfully, with some of the villagers swept into the thick of the action. After the villains escape, main character silent protagonist Isaac and his friend Garrett are tasked by a higher authority to set out on a journey to oppose the thieves and prevent the lighting of 4 elemental lighthouses that have the power of alchemy sealed inside them. So yeah, seems like an incredibly typical RPG plot at first glance. There's a sealed magical power that the villains want, along with an epic journey to stop them with the friends you meet along the way, all in order to prevent the kind of world-threatening danger that only a bunch of magical teenagers with colorful hair can resolve. But the execution is what sells it. Not only is the conflict well built up and portrayed, but there are personal stakes in the quest. That catastrophe caused by the failed thievery 3 years ago took the lives of the friends and family of the main characters. And during the second heist, not only are others coerced to the villain's side, but Felix, one of the ones thought to have perished earlier, shows up not only very much alive, but now willingly working for the other side. All in all, it's a great opening that sets up the conflict, details the personal stakes, and displays an overall degree of polish and understanding of the genre's conventions. Indeed, the masterful execution of RPG tropes permeates all of Golden Sun. What do you do in this game? Well, you travel the overworld, fight loads of monsters, gain experience, level up, learn new combat tricks, encounter towns and villages where plot stuff happens, buy fancy new gear, and occasionally meet a cool new friend to join in your quest. All the stuff you'd usually expect in an RPG. But it's here that you can see Camelot's years of RPG development coming into focus. There never feels like a wasted moment in the adventure. Everything's there for a reason and right where it's supposed to be. The combat is fast-paced, and the exploration is swift and interesting. Speaking of combat, meet the Elemental Jin, an adept's best friend and the core of Golden Sun's combat system. You find these all over the place, and after you recruit them to your squad, you get heaps of benefits. But what's really interesting is if you swap some Jin around and, say, have your Fire Adept use some Water Jin, it instantly triggers a class change, granting access to some brand new synergy and fighting styles. Honestly, the Jin system is one of my favorite RPG battle systems out there, perfectly balancing a very simple interface with a surprising level of depth hidden beneath the surface. Synergy's good for more than sending monsters to an early grave, though. Exploration is spiced up considerably with some well-thought-out puzzles, many of which can only be solved by various synergies you learn along the way. This is all great and wonderful, but there's some delectable icing on this cake that sweetens the game's every aspect, that being... presentation! Seriously, Golden Sun and its sequel are basically the best-looking games the Game Boy Advance has to offer, in my opinion. Might not look so great when stretched across a bigger screen like it is now, but when you're seeing it on the smaller screen it was designed for, you're in for one of the most cinematic experiences that the 2-decade-old handheld could muster. And even all this time later, the game just oozes style. And, lucky for us, the visual flair is complemented nicely by the audio performance. The sound effects offer a good showing on their own, adding some real impact to the explosive visuals, but the soundtrack is what really steals the show. Motoi Sakuraba, known for his work on the Tales series and plenty besides, really brought his A-game to this one. Yes, this is on the GBA, with the audio limitations that come with it, but that didn't stop him from producing the melodious serenity, blood-pumping action, and overall sense of sweeping grandeur that he's lent to many an RPG. And when you pair that alongside the game's graphical presentation, you've got yourself an experience. And now that I've gushed on about the game's positive qualities, how about the other side of the coin? What does Golden Sun do wrong? Not a whole lot in my eyes, but there are some things that are worth noting. The first of all being a general lack of difficulty. As I've said before, Golden Sun's battle structure has some well-crafted hidden complexity weaved into it, but the battles were typically easy enough that the combat system's intricacies didn't need much testing. It's never so easy that you can completely turn your brain off, and the challenge obviously starts ramping up near the end, but if you find all the Jin and comprehend the basics of how they affect combat, there's not a lot that can threaten you. There is an optional super boss to challenge if you want to, but while he's definitely no slouch, he won't be the toughest super boss you've ever faced in your life. On a similar note is the issue of linearity. Golden Sun doesn't really give you a terrible lot of room to explore most of the time, with most of the overworld generally not offering a whole lot more than a path towards the next destination. This might be an issue for some, though not me personally. I'd say the linear exploration serves the game in what it's trying to be, that being a portable RPG that's easy to pick up and play in short bursts. The linear nature of things keeps the pace up and allows for the feeling of high adventure with little chance of getting bogged down or lost along the way. This brisker pace also plays to the strength of Golden Sun's varied set pieces and scenarios, as the player is rapidly introduced to fresh and interesting new challenges. Plus, there is one part later in the game I really enjoyed where you get a shortcut to previously trodden areas to find out some hidden secrets. The game doesn't explicitly point you towards them, and they're purely there as a reward for anyone observant enough to spot them, so while the game is linear for the most part, you can't say it doesn't afford any agency to its players. If there's one thing I do think could have been improved on though, it might be the main characters. They do their jobs just fine, don't get me wrong. Their designs are nice, and all four are plenty useful in combat, but I just wish they'd talk to each other a bit more. We get enough out of them to establish their personalities and motivations, but something along the lines of Dragon Quest's party chat or Tails' skits could have gone a long way towards fleshing them out. Then again, the game already has the highly entertaining mind read ability that lets you see the inner thoughts of basically every NPC in the game, so maybe the guys in charge of optional dialogue already had their hands full. Lastly, let's touch upon the story for a bit, namely how it ends. You get your dramatic climax with the final clash against the main villains, but even after you emerge victorious, it's made very clear that a lot of work is, as of yet, unfinished. Plenty of plot points are left unresolved, Isaac's quest isn't anywhere near finished yet, and the game ends on a cliffhanger. This story is definitely a two-parter, and with Golden Sun's sequel on its way, the series was poised for further adventures. Right out the gate, Golden Sun proved it was something special. This one ranks very highly as a game I'd recommend to newcomers to the genre. With its accessible gameplay, excellent presentation, and easily digestible narrative, but even to a veteran of the genre, it boasts more than enough substance and glistening polish to prove thoroughly enjoyable, if a little simple. I've said before how much I enjoy well-crafted simplicity paired with real depth, so you can imagine how easily this one enters my list of favorites. But as much as I enjoyed it, its sequel is the one I'm most interested in revisiting. It's been a long time since I last played it, and you can bet I'll have plenty to say about it. Until then, this has been the Earthboundian, and I'll see you all next time!